It started like any other morning in Cedar Creek, a sleepy town where everyone knew each other's business and the sun always seemed to hang a little lower in the sky. Mark Dawson, a hard-working mechanic, kissed his wife Lisa on the cheek before heading out to his small garage in town. Lisa, a school teacher with a gentle smile, was already making breakfast while their daughter Emily ran around the kitchen in her little pink sneakers, singing an imaginary song. Neighbors walking their dogs glanced at the Dawson house, thinking how ordinary and peaceful it all seemed. No one could have guessed that this ordinary day would become the last anyone would see them. By mid-morning, Mark returned from the garage, sweaty and tired, yet humming a tune he had learned long ago. He loaded a cooler with sandwiches for a family picnic, while Emily clutched her favorite stuffed bunny tightly, unaware of the danger creeping closer than anyone imagined. Lisa double-checked the locks on the back door and waved at old Mrs. Carter across the street, exchanging small talk about the weather. The calm, mundane details, the way the sun glinted off the windows, the chirping of birds in the yard, only made what happened next feel even more jarring in hindsight. Around noon, neighbors noticed Mark backing his old white pickup truck out of the driveway, the engine rumbling softly. Emily sat in the passenger seat, bouncing her feet in excitement, while Lisa waved goodbye from the porch, her hair catching the sunlight. A few kids playing nearby shouted hellos, but the Dawsons responded with their usual friendly smiles. No one noticed the dark sedan that had been idling down the street for several minutes, windows tinted, engine silent, as if it were waiting for the right moment. In that quiet, unsuspecting town, the first threads of a nightmare were already weaving themselves into place. As the day wore on, Emily begged to stop at the corner store for ice cream. Mark agreed, laughing, and Lisa reminded them to be careful crossing the street. The family's laughter echoed in the air, blending with the faint hum of traffic and the distant barking of dogs. But the shadows seemed a little longer that day, stretching across the pavement in odd, unnatural angles. People driving by felt a strange chill as they passed the Dawson house, though no one could explain why. Something unseen was watching, waiting for the perfect moment. By late afternoon, the Dawsons returned home, still smiling, still unaware of the invisible eyes tracing their every step. Lisa hung laundry out back while Mark tinkered in the garage, Emily twirling around the yard with her bunny. From the outside, it looked like a perfect, ordinary day, the kind people would remember fondly in old photographs. But behind that ordinary facade, tension had already begun to creep in. The kind of tension that doesn't make a sound but leaves a lasting unease. That sunny, quiet day in September 1999 would never end the way anyone imagined. By the time night fell over Cedar Creek, panic had set in. The Dawson family had been missing for hours, and the quiet streets that once felt safe now seemed eerily empty. Neighbors dialed the sheriff's office frantically, but the line rang endlessly. Friends and relatives gathered, organizing a search party with flashlights and makeshift maps of the surrounding woods, pastures, and the winding creek that gave the town its name. Every rustle in the trees, every shadow in the distance, made hearts race and minds spiral with the worst possibilities. Volunteers spread out along the muddy banks of the creek, calling out the Dawsons' names into the fading light. Some searched abandoned barns where old farm equipment sat like forgotten relics, imagining that the family could be hiding or trapped somewhere. The wind whispered through the empty fields, carrying strange sounds. Perhaps just animals, but maybe something more sinister. Dogs barked and strained at their leashes, noses sniffing the air, while families shouted through the darkness, hoping for any reply, a sign that someone, anyone, was still there. As night deepened, flashlights pierced the blackness, revealing hollow trees, tangled brush, and the occasional glimmer of distant eyes that could have been deer, or something watching. The volunteers worked tirelessly, trudging through thick mud and low-hanging branches, each step heavier with fear and uncertainty. No footprints, no tire tracks, no clues at all. It was as if the Dawson family had been erased from the world. The realization sank in slowly, chilling everyone to the bone. This wasn't a simple case of wandering off. Something far darker had occurred. Back at the Dawson house, Sheriff Reynolds arrived, calm and collected on the surface, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. He coordinated the search but refused to let anyone approach certain areas. Woods near the old railway tracks, a narrow trail leading to the abandoned quarry. Some volunteers were frustrated, sensing a strange tension, but the sheriff insisted these areas were dangerous and off-limits. Rumors began to spread among the townsfolk. Why would a missing family search be restricted, and why did the sheriff seem oddly prepared? As hours stretched into the night, helicopters were requested from the county, their beams cutting through the dense fog rolling in from the creek. Families huddled together, holding each other as the search extended farther and farther into the surrounding woods. Every strange sound, the snap of a branch, the hoot of an owl, the distant echo of a car engine, was met with anxious speculation. Yet still, nothing. The Dawsons were gone, and Cedar Creek seemed to hold its breath, as if the land itself knew a secret that no one dared speak aloud. From the very beginning, some townspeople noticed that Sheriff Tom Reynolds' behavior didn't match the urgency of the situation. While neighbors were frantic, organizing search parties and calling every contact they had, Reynolds moved methodically, almost too calmly. He made sure the streets were cleared and volunteers stayed within certain zones, but whenever anyone asked why certain areas were off-limits, he offered vague excuses. "It's dangerous out there, or we'll handle it internally." His calmness, instead of reassuring, began to unsettle people, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion. Several volunteers reported odd encounters with the sheriff that night. One man recalled being stopped near the old railway tracks by Reynolds' deputy, who insisted, "You don't want to go that way. It's not safe." But what bothered him most was the way the deputy avoided explaining why. No one saw anyone else there, and yet the sheriff's team seemed unusually aware of every movement in the woods, as if they were following the Dawson family's trail without anyone else noticing. It felt deliberate, too calculated to be coincidental. Rumors started circulating quickly. Some whispered that Reynolds had prior knowledge of the disappearance, though no one had proof. Others mentioned the sheriff's unusually fast closure of certain leads, like the Dawson's old shed or the back pasture where Emily used to play. Every time a volunteer stumbled across a possible clue, a discarded toy, a footprint in the mud, the sheriff's office was the first to arrive, taking control and quickly removing evidence from view. Locals began asking themselves, was he protecting the family, or protecting something else? Inside the sheriff's office, unusual activity raised further suspicion. Phones rang constantly but went unanswered. Files on the Dawson family were marked sealed, with entry restricted to Reynolds and a few senior deputies. Volunteers claimed they heard whispers about off-the-record instructions, do not involve outside authorities. Some town residents who had worked in the office recalled seeing memos that never reached the public, discussing the Dawson family in ways that implied knowledge beyond what a typical missing persons case would require. The secrecy was suffocating, feeding a growing sense of dread. Even outside the immediate search efforts, Reynolds' presence was pervasive and unsettling. Drivers passing the Dawson home reported seeing his car parked for hours with headlights on, as if watching the property. And late at night, some swore they saw shadows moving near the woods, always when the sheriff's cruiser was nearby. The calm, authoritative figure who was supposed to protect them now seemed to hold the town in a quiet, invisible grip, one that hinted at secrets and decisions that could never safely see the light of day. It was nearly a month after the Dawson family vanished when a hiker named Carl stumbled upon something unusual while walking along the edge of Cedar Creek woods. At first, he thought it was a piece of trash glinting in the sunlight, but as he knelt to pick it up, he realized it was a small silver locket, worn and tarnished with age. Opening it, he was met with a photograph of Emily Dawson, smiling and clutching her stuffed bunny, a picture that seemed impossibly fresh despite the passing weeks. The locket had no owner in sight and no sign of where it had come from, sending a chill down Carl's spine. Inside the locket, on the back of the photo, was a chilling engraving, "Find us before they do." Carl shivered at the words. Who could have placed it there? Was it a warning or a plea? The phrase carried an urgent sense of danger, as if whoever wrote it was aware of unseen threats lurking in the shadows. Carl felt the weight of the message, realizing this wasn't just a lost keepsake. This was evidence, deliberately left behind, and it hinted at a story far darker than the disappearance anyone had imagined. Word of the locket spread quickly, sparking both hope and fear in the Cedar Creek community. People wondered if Emily, or her parents, had tried to leave a message. Others feared that it was a warning from someone, or something, still watching. Every theory seemed stranger than the last. Some believed the family might have been captured, forced to leave clues in secret. Others whispered about criminal activity in the town, rumors of people with power hiding what no one was meant to see. The locket became a focal point for desperate imaginations, a tiny key to an unsolvable puzzle. Investigators examined the locket for fingerprints, DNA, and any trace of who might have handled it. Curiously, nothing matched the Dawson family or any known local residents. It was as if it had been deliberately planted for someone else to find, almost like a breadcrumb trail through a forest of secrets. The more officials examined it, the more unnerving it became. The engraving, though small, seemed to pulse with intent, almost as if the message itself demanded action. And yet, the lack of any other evidence left everyone on edge, an unsolved riddle that only deepened the town's growing unease. Even years later, the locket remained a haunting symbol. Those who saw it swore they felt a strange weight in their hands, a silent warning embedded in its silver casing. Children dared each other to walk past the spot where Carl had found it. Adults spoke in hushed tones about the Dawson family's fate, and journalists began digging into stories no one else wanted touched. The locket, small and unassuming, had become a focal point of terror, a quiet, constant reminder that someone, somewhere, was still watching, and the family's disappearance was far from ordinary. Years later, investigative journalists gained access to the sheriff's long-sealed files that had been hidden from the public eye for over 2 decades. Among them were several surveillance tapes, most of them dated from the weeks leading up to the Dawson family's disappearance. The footage was grainy, dark, and unsettling, blurred shadows lurking at the edges of the frame, cars idling silently, and figures moving in the background that seemed almost too precise, as if someone was orchestrating events from afar. Even watching the tapes now, viewers could feel the cold, creeping sense that they were intruding on something they were never meant to see. One of the earliest tapes showed the Dawsons going about their daily routines, completely unaware that their movements were being recorded. Mark was fixing the truck outside, Emily played on the lawn, and Lisa tended to the garden, sunlight glinting off her hair. Yet in every shot, there was always a dark sedan parked at a distance, motionless, almost like a shadow that refused to leave. Sometimes, the camera angle would capture a man in the background, face obscured, always observing, always waiting. It wasn't just coincidence, it was surveillance. And the more the journalists watched, the more chilling it became. The Dawsons were being followed, tracked, and trapped in ways no one outside Cedar Creek could imagine. Another tape revealed something far more sinister. Late one night, the white pickup truck rolled slowly down a deserted street, headlights off, Emily asleep in the passenger seat. Shadowy figures flitted along the roadside, seemingly guiding the truck toward an unknown destination. The sound of whispers carried faintly through the tape, and at one point, a hand appeared briefly, tapping on the passenger window before vanishing into darkness. The footage was brief but enough to confirm what many had feared. Someone was manipulating the Dawsons' movements, orchestrating their disappearance in real time. The tapes also contained glimpses of the sheriff's office itself, footage that had never been released. It showed Sheriff Reynolds in meetings with deputies, quietly discussing the family, pointing at maps, and reviewing notes that hinted at a larger, hidden operation. There were moments where Reynolds seemed to hesitate, almost as if he understood the danger the Dawsons were in, yet he chose inaction. The tapes painted a picture of deliberate oversight. Someone in authority knew more than they should, and rather than intervening, they let events unfold, letting the shadows close in on the family. The final tapes were the most unsettling. They documented the truck leaving Cedar Creek one evening, the Dawsons visible in the frame, but no footage showed them arriving anywhere. The shadows seemed to swallow the vehicle whole, leaving nothing but empty roads behind. Viewers watching now could feel the tension as though they were in the car themselves. Every turn, every flicker of movement in the bushes, every distant headlight hinting at an unseen observer. The tapes ended abruptly, leaving an overwhelming sense of dread. The family had vanished into the unknown, but someone, somewhere, had orchestrated it with terrifying precision. The sealed files revealed far more than just surveillance footage. They uncovered a web of deliberate deception that had been quietly maintained by the sheriff's department for years. Among the documents were internal memos marked confidential, discussing the Dawson disappearance in a way that made it clear the case was far from ordinary. Officers debated reporting findings to outside authorities, but each memo concluded with a chilling directive: do not involve outside agencies. Case closed internally. It wasn't negligence, it was intentional. Someone powerful had decided that the truth would stay buried. Investigative journalists pored over witness statements and correspondence that had never been released, piecing together a pattern of obstruction. Several locals recalled being asked to forget certain sightings. Strange cars parked near the Dawson home, unknown individuals spotted in the woods, even phone calls warning them not to investigate. Every lead that could have exposed the truth vanished as quickly as it appeared. The implication was horrifying. The sheriff wasn't just failing to help the family, he was actively covering up whatever had claimed them. Even more disturbing were the documents hinting at the reason behind the disappearance. One memo suggested the Dawsons had stumbled upon a criminal operation that reached far beyond Cedar Creek. Mentions of illicit activity, unexplained financial transactions, and interference with powerful local figures appeared repeatedly. It became evident that the family's ordinary life had collided with forces they could never have imagined, forces so influential that law enforcement itself was forced to turn a blind eye. The notion that a family could simply vanish, and the very people meant to protect them could allow it, sent shockwaves through those who examined the files. Phone records and property deeds included in the sealed files hinted at a systematic effort to relocate the family without leaving a trace. Transactions were obscured, movements disguised, and every paper trail meticulously erased. Even deputies who had worked under Sheriff Reynolds later admitted feeling uneasy about the operation but feared reprisal. The files painted a picture of a town controlled by shadows, where the law was a tool not for protection, but for concealment. Every revelation deepened the chilling realization. The Dawson disappearance wasn't a random tragedy. It was a meticulously executed plan, one designed to ensure silence at any cost. Perhaps the most alarming aspect of the cover-up was its longevity. The files showed that for years, the sheriff's office had maintained a narrative of missing persons, while actively suppressing any information that could lead to the family. Requests from journalists, neighboring authorities, and even federal agencies were quietly stalled or redirected. Those who tried to uncover the truth were met with bureaucratic roadblocks, veiled threats, or outright denials. The files revealed that the Dawson family had never simply disappeared. They had been deliberately erased from the public record, leaving only shadows, whispers, and the unsettling suspicion that some secrets in Cedar Creek were never meant to see the light of day. Years after the Dawson family vanished, the trail seemed to have gone cold, until journalists and amateur investigators started digging through obscure records and old property deeds. What they found hinted at a carefully orchestrated disappearance. The files indicated that the family had been moved to a remote property hundreds of miles away, a place so isolated that it would take hours for anyone to reach them, and even longer for help to arrive unnoticed. Locals who lived near the area reported seeing unusual activity. Trucks arriving at odd hours, lights flickering in the middle of the night, and construction noises that never seemed to correspond to any legitimate project. Phone records provided another layer of mystery. Calls from the Dawson home abruptly stopped on the day of their disappearance, only to be rerouted through burner phones tied to unknown locations. Investigators discovered that some of the calls were traced to areas far outside Texas, suggesting that someone, or some group, had the resources and the intent to monitor the family's movements meticulously. Every step of the Dawson family had been planned and manipulated, leaving no chance for escape or outside interference. The realization made it clear that this was no random crime. It was a controlled operation executed with frightening precision. Eyewitness accounts added a chilling dimension. Residents near the remote property later recalled fleeting glimpses of the family, a silhouette in the window, a child running across a yard, or a woman standing silently at the porch, watching the horizon. But whenever anyone tried to get closer or ask questions, the family was gone. Trucks arrived late at night, covering tracks, and unfamiliar vehicles patrolled the dirt roads around the property. The people who saw these glimpses described a sense of fear, as if the family themselves were trapped in a web of control and fear, unable to escape the people who had taken them. Even more disturbing were subtle signs of threats that extended beyond physical confinement. Journalists uncovered notes and cryptic messages hidden in property records and mail forwarding addresses. Messages warning anyone who came too close to mind your own business or stay away. It became apparent that the Dawson family, though alive for a time, had been forced into silence, their lives carefully managed to avoid detection. Every document, every fleeting sighting, suggested a family watched by invisible eyes, their world constricted to the point where ordinary life was impossible. Finally, a pattern emerged from the disparate clues. Someone powerful and influential had orchestrated every aspect of the Dawson family's disappearance and relocation. The surveillance, the secret property, the manipulated phone records, all pointed to a chilling reality. The family had been removed from public life for a reason, and the people responsible had made sure that even after decades, no one could uncover the full truth. The clues painted a story of control, fear, and secrecy so meticulous that the Dawson family's fate remained shrouded in shadow, leaving those investigating with more questions than answers. Even now, more than 2 decades later, the Dawson family's fate remains a chilling mystery. The sheriff's sealed files, the hidden tapes, the locket, and the scattered clues all point to one terrifying reality. Someone powerful orchestrated their disappearance, and the truth was deliberately buried. Cedar Creek's quiet streets hide secrets that no one dares speak aloud, and every unanswered question only deepens the sense of dread. Investigators, journalists, and even townspeople who tried to piece the puzzle together discovered the same haunting pattern: control, manipulation, and fear. The family didn't just vanish. They were erased, their lives rewritten in shadows, and their story locked away behind walls of secrecy. The documents, tapes, and witness accounts show that the people responsible had the means and the motive to ensure no one could interfere. And yet, even with every file uncovered and every witness interviewed, the ultimate truth remains elusive. Where is the Dawson family now? Are they still alive, trapped somewhere in silence, or had their lives been taken in ways no one can fully comprehend? The town itself seems complicit in its own silence, as if the land remembers and the people dare not speak. The Dawson case serves as a haunting reminder that some mysteries are more than just cold cases. They are orchestrated nightmares, carefully hidden behind the faces of those entrusted to protect us. And in Cedar Creek, the line between justice and concealment has always been blurred. For those who dare to look closer, the story doesn't end here. Every shadow in the woods, every abandoned house, every faint glimmer of light on a dark road could be a clue, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it. The Dawson family vanished in 1999, but the questions they left behind continue to linger, whispering a chilling warning. Some secrets are never meant to be found.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.